Priya Sharma was 28 years old, and she had completely given up on love. 3 years ago, her heart was broken so badly that she promised herself she would never let anyone get that close again. She built invisible walls around her heart. She focused only on her work. She became one of the best young architects in Mumbai. But deep inside, there was an emptiness that no amount of success could fill. On that particular Tuesday morning, Priya was sitting at the Mumbai airport, waiting for her flight to Dubai. She had a very important presentation the next day, a big project that could change her entire career. She had worked on it for months. Every detail was perfect. She was nervous, but also excited. Then came the announcement that changed everything. Her flight was delayed by 6 hours due to bad weather in Dubai. Priya felt frustrated. She had planned everything so carefully, and now she was stuck at the airport with nothing to do. She picked up her laptop bag and walked around, looking for somewhere to sit and work. The airport was extremely crowded that day. Every seat seemed to be taken. Every coffee shop was full of tired passengers. Priya walked from one end to the other, getting more irritated with each step. Finally, she spotted a small cafe near Gate 7. There was one empty seat at a corner table. She rushed toward it, before anyone else could take it. But when she reached the table, she realized she would be sharing it with a stranger. A man was sitting on the other side, completely lost in a book. He had warm, brown skin and kind eyes. He was wearing a simple blue shirt and seemed totally unaware of the chaos around him. He was so focused on his reading that he did not even notice her standing there. Priya hesitated for a moment. She was not the type to sit with strangers, but her feet were hurting and she had no other choice. She quietly pulled out the chair and sat down. The man looked up briefly, gave her a polite smile, and went back to his book. His name was Daniel Okonkwo. He was 32 years old, and he was a music producer from London. He was flying to Dubai for his best friend's wedding. He had brought his favorite book to pass the time during the long journey. He had no idea that the woman who just sat across from him was about to turn his whole world upside down. For the first 20 minutes, neither of them spoke. Priya opened her laptop and tried to review her presentation. Daniel continued reading. The cafe was noisy with conversations and coffee machines and flight announcements. But at their little table, there was a strange kind of silence. Then something funny happened. The waiter came with their orders. Priya had ordered black coffee. Daniel had ordered tea with milk. But the waiter got confused and placed the tea in front of Priya and the coffee in front of Daniel. They both looked at the wrong drinks, then looked at each other, and then, at the exact same moment, they started laughing. It was not a polite laugh. It was a real laugh. The kind that comes from somewhere deep inside. Daniel pushed the coffee toward her. She pushed the tea toward him. And just like that, the ice was broken. He asked her where she was traveling to. She told him about her project in Dubai. He seemed genuinely interested. He asked questions about architecture, about design, about what made a building beautiful. No one had ever asked her these things before. Most people found her work boring. But Daniel listened like every word mattered. She asked him about his book. He told her it was about a musician who lost everything but found himself through his art. His eyes lit up when he talked about music. She could tell it was not just his job. It was his passion, his whole reason for being. Hours passed like minutes. They talked about their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. She told him about losing her father 2 years ago, how she still could not visit his grave because the pain was too fresh. He told her about growing up in London, feeling like he did not belong anywhere. How music became his home when he had none. The announcement came for their flight to start boarding. They both stood up slowly, neither wanting this conversation to end. Daniel looked at her with nervousness in his eyes. He took a deep breath and asked for her phone number. Priya felt her heart racing. Every instinct told her to say no, to protect herself, to keep those walls strong. But something about this man felt different. Something about this moment felt like it mattered. She took his phone and typed in her number. When she handed it back, their fingers touched for just a second. And in that second, they both felt something shift. Something begin. As they walked toward the gate, neither of them knew that this chance meeting would lead to the greatest love story of their lives, and also the greatest heartbreak. But that is a story for another time. The first message came exactly 12 hours after they landed in Dubai. Priya was sitting in her hotel room, going through her presentation one last time. Her phone buzzed. It was from Daniel. Just 3 simple words. Hope you're well. She smiled without even realizing it. She typed back, nervous about tomorrow. He replied within seconds, you will be amazing. I can feel it. That night, she slept better than she had in months. Her presentation the next day was a huge success. The investors loved her design. They approved the project on the spot. When she called Daniel to share the news, he cheered so loudly that people in his hotel turned to look at him. He did not care. Her happiness was his happiness. Already, from that day forward, they became inseparable even though they lived in different countries. Priya went back to Mumbai. Daniel returned to London. There were thousands of miles between them. Different time zones. Different lives. But somehow, they made it work. Every morning, Daniel would wake up early just to catch her during her lunch break. He would send her voice notes while she was stuck in traffic. Little jokes, song clips. Sometimes just the sound of him humming while he made coffee. She saved every single one. Every night, Priya would stay up late to video call him before he went to sleep. They would talk for hours about everything and nothing. She would show him the skyline from her balcony. He would play her snippets of songs he was working on. They created their own little world that existed only in phone screens and Wi-Fi signals. The weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, they fell deeper in love. It was strange, falling for someone you could not touch, someone you could not hold. But somehow, the distance made their connection stronger. Every conversation mattered. Every moment together, even if it was virtual, felt precious. Priya started opening up in ways she never had before. She told Daniel about her broken engagement 3 years ago, how her ex had left her for someone else just 2 months before the wedding, how she had sworn never to trust anyone again. Daniel listened without judgment. He did not try to fix her pain. He just held space for it. And that was exactly what she needed. Daniel shared his own struggles. Growing up, his father had told him that music was not a real career, that he was wasting his life, chasing dreams. For years, he had carried that voice in his head, telling him he was not good enough. Even now, with all his success, imposter syndrome followed him everywhere. Some days, he felt like a fraud waiting to be exposed. Priya became his safe space, the one person he could be vulnerable with. But love across oceans is not easy. There were hard days too. Priya's project in Dubai turned into something much bigger than expected. She was working 16-hour days. Sometimes she would fall asleep during their video calls without meaning to. Daniel understood at first, but slowly it started to hurt. He missed her. He needed her. And she was always too tired. Meanwhile, Daniel's career exploded. A major record label signed him. Suddenly, he was in the studio every day working with famous artists. His phone was always ringing. He had meetings and deadlines, and people constantly demanding his attention. The sweet morning messages became shorter. Sometimes, they did not come at all. 1 week passed when they barely spoke. Then, another. The distance that had once brought them closer now felt like a wall between them. Priya started doubting everything. Was this even real? How could you love someone you had only met once? Maybe she was foolish to believe in something so impossible. Maybe this was all just a beautiful fantasy that could never survive the real world. One night, after another missed call, she sat alone in her apartment. The city lights of Mumbai twinkled outside her window, but she felt no joy. She picked up her phone and started typing a message to Daniel. Maybe this was a beautiful dream, but dreams don't survive reality. I think we need to accept that. Her finger hovered over the send button. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Part of her wanted to send it. To end the pain before it got worse. To go back to being the woman with walls around her heart. At least that woman was safe. But another part of her remembered his laugh at the airport cafe. The way he listened when she talked about her father. The voice notes that made her smile on her worst days. She stared at the screen for a long time. The cursor blinked. Waiting. Finally, she deleted the message. Every single word. She put down her phone and cried herself to sleep, not knowing that thousands of miles away, Daniel was lying awake, staring at the same stars, feeling the same fear. He had no idea how close he came to losing her that night. And she had no idea what he was planning to do about it. 3 weeks passed after that terrible night. Priya and Daniel had started talking again, but something felt different. The conversations were polite, but careful, like two people walking on thin ice, afraid it might break beneath them. The easy laughter was gone. The deep confessions had stopped. They were going through the motions, but the magic seemed to be fading. Priya threw herself deeper into work. It was easier that way. If she stayed busy enough, she did not have time to think about what she was losing. She had a final presentation coming up, the biggest one of her career. Investors from around the world would be there. If this went well, her name would be known across the industry. She told herself that was enough. Career success would fill the empty space in her heart. It had to. On the morning of her presentation, Priya woke up before sunrise. She put on her best suit, the deep blue one that made her feel powerful. She practiced her speech in the mirror one more time. She told her reflection that everything would be fine. She almost believed it. The conference room was packed. Important people in expensive clothes filled every seat. Cameras were set up in the back. Her hands were shaking, but she hid them behind the podium. She took a deep breath and began. For the next hour, Priya was brilliant. She explained her design with passion and clarity. She answered every difficult question with confidence. By the time she finished, the room erupted in applause. People were standing up. They were clapping for her. She had done it. The biggest moment of her career. And yet, standing there, in the spotlight, she felt strangely empty. During the break, Priya stepped away from the crowd. She needed air. She needed silence. She walked toward the large window, overlooking the courtyard below. The Mumbai sun was bright, and the garden was full of colorful flowers. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Look outside. She frowned. Probably spam. Some advertisement. She almost ignored it. But something made her look anyway. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Just the courtyard, the fountain, a few people walking around. Then, her eyes found him. Standing in the middle of the garden, holding a bouquet of sunflowers, was Daniel. Priya could not move. She could not breathe. Her brain could not process what her eyes were seeing. Standing there like it was the most normal thing in the world. Her legs moved before her mind caught up. She ran out of the conference room, down the stairs, through the lobby, out into the courtyard. People stared at her. The woman in the blue suit running like her life depended on it. When she reached him, she stopped. Her chest was heaving. Tears were already streaming down her face. He was really here. This was not a dream. Daniel looked at her with those kind eyes she had fallen in love with at a crowded airport cafe. He held out the sunflowers. Her favorite. She had mentioned it once. Months ago. Just in passing. He remembered. I am tired of loving you from far, he said simply. She laughed through her tears. How did you even find me? He smiled. Your Instagram. You posted about the conference last week. I may have done some detective work. She took the flowers. Her hands were trembling. You flew across the world. Without telling me. I needed you to know this is real, he said. That I am real. That I am not going anywhere. Priya looked at this man who had crossed oceans for her. Who had shown up when she least expected it. Who had done the one thing no one else had ever done. He chose her. Completely and without hesitation. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Right there, in the courtyard. In front of everyone. She did not care who was watching. For the first time in years, she let herself feel. Really feel. The walls she had built so carefully came crashing down, and she let them fall. That evening, they walked through the streets of Mumbai together. He held her hand like it was the most precious thing in the world. She showed him the places she loved. The chai stall, near her office. The old bookshop where she spent her Sundays. The bridge, where she used to sit and think about her father. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Daniel stopped walking. He turned to face her. I know this is crazy, he said. We have only met in person twice. We live in different countries. Nothing about this makes sense. Nothing, she agreed. But I have never been more sure of anything, he continued. I want to try. Really try. I want us to have a real chance. Priya looked at him for a long moment. The logical part of her brain listed all the reasons this was impossible. The distance, the careers, the practical problems. But her heart was louder. Her heart remembered every late-night conversation, every voice note, every moment of understanding they had shared across the miles. Okay, she said softly. Let us try. He kissed her forehead. A gentle promise of everything to come. Neither of them knew the challenges that waited ahead. The sacrifices, the struggles, the moments when trying would not feel like enough. But in that moment, under the Mumbai sunset, anything seemed possible. Love had won. For now. 6 months later, Priya packed up her entire life in Mumbai and moved to London to be with Daniel. It was the scariest decision she had ever made. She left behind her job, her friends, her mother, everything familiar. All for a man she had spent more time with on video calls than in person. The first few weeks were like a dream. Waking up next to him every morning felt unreal. Making breakfast together. Laughing over silly things. Exploring the city. Hand in hand. Finally being able to touch him whenever she wanted. No more time zones. No more waiting. Just them. But dreams have a way of meeting reality. And reality is often harsh. The first problem was work. Priya's architecture license from India did not transfer to the UK. She could not simply walk into a job. She would have to start over. Take exams. Build her reputation from scratch. The woman who had once led major projects was now filling out job applications that went unanswered. Weeks turned into months. No one hired her. Her savings started running out. She felt useless, invisible, like she was disappearing slowly in a city that was too big and too cold and too unfamiliar. Meanwhile, Daniel's career was soaring. His album released and became a massive hit. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of him. He had interviews and photo shoots and award shows. He traveled constantly. When he was home, he was exhausted. He would fall asleep on the couch before dinner was ready. Priya understood. She really did. This was his moment. Everything he had worked for his entire life. She wanted to be supportive. She wanted to be happy for him. But it was hard. So hard. She spent most of her days alone in their apartment. The same walls. The same silence. She missed Mumbai. She missed her mother's cooking. She missed the chaos and color of home. She missed being someone who mattered. The worst part was that she could not talk to Daniel about it. Whenever she tried, he would get defensive. He was working so hard, providing for them. What more did she want? He did not understand that she did not want his money. She wanted him, his presence, his attention, his time. They started fighting more often. Small arguments that blew up into big ones. She would complain that he never listened. He would say she did not appreciate his efforts. Old wounds reopened. On Inessa, well, they're till today, old insecurities surfaced. One cold November evening, everything exploded. Daniel came home late. Again. He had forgotten that it was their 1-year anniversary since the airport meeting. Priya had cooked his favorite meal. She had dressed up. She had waited for hours. When he walked in, tired and distracted, she saw it on his face. He had forgotten. She did not yell at first. She just asked him if he knew what day it was. He checked his phone. His face fell. The guilt was obvious. But by then, it was too late. The words that came out of her mouth surprised even herself. All the frustration, all the loneliness, all the resentment she had been swallowing for months. It poured out like a river, breaking through a dam. She told him she had given up everything for him. Her career, her home, her identity. And what had she gotten in return? An empty apartment and a boyfriend who was never there. He fired back. He said he was doing his best, that he could not help his success, that she was being unfair, that maybe she should have thought about all this before moving across the world. That last line cut deeper than anything else. They stood in their kitchen, breathing hard, looking at each other like strangers. The beautiful dinner sat cold on the table between them. The candles had burned out. "I do not know who I am anymore," Priya whispered. Her voice cracked. "I look in the mirror, and I do not recognize myself." Daniel had no answer for that. He stood frozen, helpless. She went to the bedroom, packed a small bag, the essentials, just enough for a few days. She needed space. She needed to think. She needed to breathe. When she walked back out, suitcase in hand, Daniel was still standing in the same spot. His eyes were red. His hands were shaking. He wanted to stop her. She could see it on his face. But he did not move. He did not say a word. She walked past him, opened the door, paused. "I loved you more than I have ever loved anyone," she said without turning around. But love is not supposed to make you lose yourself. And then, she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her. The sound echoed in the silence. Daniel stood alone in their apartment, surrounded by the ruins of their anniversary dinner, and wondered if he had just lost the best thing that ever happened to him. The flight to Mumbai was long. Priya stared out the window at the clouds below and cried silently. She did not know if she was running away or running toward something. She just knew she could not stay. She had given love everything, and it still was not enough. Mumbai welcomed Priya home with open arms. Her mother cried when she saw her at the airport. Her childhood bedroom was exactly as she had left it. The familiar sounds of the city wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Traffic noise, street vendors calling, neighbors gossiping. The chaos she had once wanted to escape now felt like comfort. For the first few weeks, Priya did nothing. She slept late. She ate her mother's cooking. She stared at the ceiling and let herself feel all the pain she had been running from. The heartbreak, the failure, the loss of the woman she used to be. Slowly, she started putting the pieces back together. She began taking long walks on Marine Drive every evening. The sea breeze and the sunset became her therapy. She reconnected with old friends she had neglected during her relationship. She called her sister more often. She learned to be alone without feeling lonely. One morning, she finally did something she had been avoiding for years. She visited her father's grave. Standing there, looking at his name carved in stone, she finally let herself grieve. Not just for him, but for everything. For the dreams that did not work out. For the love that fell apart. For the girl who once believed that working hard meant everything would be okay. "Papa," she whispered, "I think I finally understand what you meant when you said happiness comes from inside. I kept looking for it in achievements, in other people. But it was never there. It was always here." She touched her heart. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But for the first time in months, they were healing tears. The days turned into weeks. Priya started taking freelance architecture projects. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. She found joy in her work again, not because she needed to prove anything to anyone, just because she loved it. She had forgotten that somewhere along the way, and through all this, there was Daniel. He had respected her need for space. He did not call. He did not show up unannounced. He did not make dramatic gestures. But every single morning, without fail, a message would arrive on her phone. "I am still here. No pressure. Just here." At first, she did not respond. She could not. The wound was too fresh. But she read every message. She saved every one. And slowly, something inside her began to soften. One night, 3 months after she left London, Priya was sitting on her balcony watching the city lights. She thought about everything that had happened. The airport meeting, the long-distance months, the joy of finally being together, the pain of falling apart. She realized something important. They had not failed because they did not love each other. They had failed because they both lost themselves while trying to build something together. She had given up her identity. He had gotten lost in his success. They had forgotten that love is not about becoming one person. It is about two complete people choosing each other every day. She was complete now. She had found herself again. The question was whether they could find each other too. On a quiet December evening, Priya boarded a flight to London. She did not tell Daniel. She did not tell anyone. Some things you just have to do. When she landed, it was snowing. The city looked like a postcard. White rooftops, soft lights, people rushing home to warm houses. She took a taxi to his apartment, the same apartment where everything had fallen apart. She stood outside the door for a long time. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were cold. She was terrified. But she had not come this far to turn back now. She knocked. Footsteps approached. The door opened. And there he was. Daniel looked different. Tired. A little thinner. There were dark circles under his eyes. But when he saw her, his whole face changed. Surprise. Disbelief. Hope. Everything at once. Neither of them spoke. They just looked at each other. All the words they needed to say hung in the air between them. The apologies. The explanations. The promises. Priya stepped closer. Close enough that she could feel his warmth. Close enough that her breath brushed against his chest. "I am not here for the perfect version of us," she said softly. "I know that does not exist. Then why are you here?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Because I want the real version," she answered. "The messy one. The complicated one. The one where we fight and make up and grow together. I want all of it. With you." Daniel exhaled. A breath he had been holding for 3 months. Maybe his whole life. He reached out and pulled her close. His arms wrapped around her, like she was the only thing keeping him standing. "I am so sorry," he whispered into her hair. "For everything. For not seeing you. For not being there. For making you feel like you were less than everything." She held him tighter. "I am sorry too. For running instead of fighting. For not telling you what I needed." They stood in the doorway, holding each other, as snow fell gently around them. The world continued moving. People walked past. Cars drove by. But for them, time had stopped. Finally, Priya pulled back just enough to look at him. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. The real smile. The one that reached her soul. "I am ready now," she said. "Really ready." Daniel looked at her. At this incredible woman who had walked away and come back, who had found herself and chosen him anyway. He could feel it in her breath. The certainty, the peace, the love that was no longer desperate but steady, strong, true. "I know," he said. "I can feel it." He leaned down and kissed her. Gentle at first, then deeper. A kiss that held years of longing and months of pain, and the promise of everything they would build together. When they finally broke apart, he took her hand and led her inside. The apartment was different, cleaner, quieter. There was a new bookshelf filled with books about architecture. A frame on the wall, with the boarding pass from their first meeting. "I never stopped believing," he said, "that you would come back, that we would figure this out." Priya squeezed his hand. "Neither did I. Even when I was angry, even when I was broken, some part of me always knew." They stayed up all night talking. Really talking. About what went wrong. About what they wanted. About how to build a life that had room for both of their dreams. It would not be easy. Nothing worth having ever was. But they were different now. Stronger. Wiser. More honest. As the first light of dawn crept through the window, Priya rested her head on Daniel's shoulder. His arms were around her. The snow had stopped. The world outside was still and white and new. "This is just the beginning," he murmured. She smiled against his chest. "I know, and I am ready for all of it." He kissed the top of her head. "So am I." And there, in a small London apartment, two people who had found each other by chance and lost each other by circumstance finally chose each other on purpose. Not because it was easy, not because it was perfect, but because some loves are worth fighting for. Some loves are worth coming home to. She was ready. And he could feel it in her breath. The end.